The trade deadline is inching closer and closer, and major trades are going down across the NHL. And recent reports have started to reveal the asking price for a lot of the players that the Leafs are interested in, including Chris Tanev. So we'll break that down in this episode of Leafs Digest, as well as Nikita Zadorov, the former Leafs target, may be unhappy in Vancouver and may be getting shipped out. Could the Leafs have interest? We'll discuss all that in this episode. But before we do, quick reminder to hit the subscribe button. About 80% of you who are watching are not subscribed. So if you aren't already, we're on the road to 6,000. Your support has been unbelievable. Now, Darius, we have a lot to get into today. A lot of stuff related to the Leafs, a lot of stuff related to the NHL in general, as yesterday the blockbuster trade went down between two Canadian teams. We'll get into that trade and much more, obviously, but let's just start with the asking price. It has been revealed a lot of these players. We know the Toronto Maple Leafs, Brad Living, they need to make a move. We've been discussing this for so long. And Chris Tanev's the guy that keeps getting brought up. And in yesterday's trade, there were some rumblings that maybe Chris Tanev was going to get included in that monster trade. Ultimately, didn't happen. And then Dwally went on online and said that the Flames are looking for a first-round pick for Chris Tanev. We have a lot of people saying the Leafs should not offer a first-round pick for Tanev. So this is the first kind of asking price revealed for a player of Chris Tanev's caliber. And let's get your thoughts on that before we get into another crazy topic. But just let's start with this. Prices are starting to get revealed for these players, and it's becoming clearer and clearer what the Leafs may have to give up to acquire one of these guys.
Yeah, and I think if the price is a first round pick, if you're the Leafs, you're looking at that and you're like, okay, we're out. We're out on this guy. I don't think you can. I don't think that's an option for the Leafs this year for a guy like Chris Tanev. I think if you're going to go above and beyond, like maybe Jacob Chikrin or someone else that's more, steady and locked into a contract, I think you can talk about it. But if you're looking at Chris Tanev, if it's a first round pick, I don't know if you can commit to that. Now, there's been some rumblings over the last few days that even the Senators are interested in him, which doesn't really make sense for them. And the Canucks, like you mentioned, which is pretty interesting. And I think that they are kind of in on him because he's a former Canuck. He would fit in with the system. And now there's also other rumors, which I'm sure we'll get into, with Zadorov not, kind of fitting the mold there. It's not really a play thing. It sounds like it's more the locker room. He's just not meshing with their... I don't know what it is. The rumors are all over the place, right? But it doesn't sound like he's meshing well with the team. So he could be on the outs now as well again, which makes things pretty interesting if you're the Leafs, because maybe you start to look at Zadorov again, if that's possible, right? If I'm being honest, I think Tanev might end up with the Canucks just because of familiarity and all that stuff, right? And if you're the Leafs, like we've been talking about, I'm not sure you want to commit to a UFA or commit a first round pick for a UFA.
Yeah, and obviously, things are kind of getting a little crazy right now, and I didn't expect it. We've kind of discussed the potential return for a guy like Chris Tanev. We've always said that if it was a first, Brad Schilling will be out on that, even though he is confident, and reports have come out he's confident they can re-sign Tanev. I don't know if the Leafs want to give up a first-round pick for a guy that really won't put them over the top this year, because obviously the developments need to come from within. So that's an interesting one, especially given the return. Let's just quickly look at it now. That big Calgary Flames and Vancouver Canucks trade. You have a great defensive prospect, a first, a fourth, a couple other players for Elias Lindholm. Again, this was never a trade the Leafs were really going to consider. Maybe in our pipe dreams we could have considered it a little bit, but this kind of is relevant to the Leafs in the sense of how it's shaping up the market. I want to get your quick thoughts on, I guess, this trade, but from a Leafs perspective about how this could shape up the trade deadline market going forward. And we've seen some reports that maybe the Leafs are going to stand pat. If anything, this might even push them more towards that side, because it's a big, big haul for the Calgary Flames to get. And if you're a Flames fan watching this video, I would be pretty ecstatic if I was them.
Well, that's just it, right? There's a lot of variables at play. That's the thing. If you're the Leafs and you're looking at the team, if you're looking at the team at this point in the season, I'm not sure you're very confident you want to buy at the deadline and go for it, right? But if you're the Canucks, obviously you do. So obviously the Canucks were confident in making a move like that, adding to their center depth yesterday with that huge trade. And they gave up a lot. Like, a lot of people are not really digesting yet what they gave up. They gave up a lot and some good prospects and some picks. But they're confident in their team, so they're in a different position, right? They're addressing needs. If you're the Leafs, if you look at it logically and strategically, your team hasn't performed to the level that you wanted them to so far this year. And Tanev, if you really want him, it could be like a TJ Brody situation. You can sign him in the offseason if you want to look at it logically like that. I don't know if giving up a first-round pick for someone like Tanev makes sense for this season. Like you said, the exact wording, it doesn't put them over the top. So it's pretty interesting. We got to keep our eye on everything the next couple of weeks, because obviously it's All-Star weekend and All-Star break, and there's still major trades going down, which is crazy. The Flames don't even have a rep at the All-Star game now, which is insane. But I think we just have to keep tabs on it. The Leafs are not exactly where we thought they would be and performing to what we know them to be. So it's going to, I don't know, it's going to be pretty interesting. Tanev, Will he be a Leaf? I don't know. Not for that price. I don't know.
Not for that price, yeah. It's interesting. Obviously, this is one of the bigger trades. I didn't expect a trade this big to go down, especially not over the All-Star break that's happening. But ultimately, it did happen, and you kind of mentioned it. It's starting to form and starting to seem like the asking price for a lot of these players is much higher than the Leafs will say. I'm not going to comment on other teams. Different teams are in different positions. Obviously, the Canucks are having an unbelievable season. They want to capitalize on that. But I mean, a first-round pick for Chris Tanev, who's a pending UFA, 33 years old. He is having a great season, but like, for a team to do that, you would have to be, a team like the Canucks, who are contenders this year, and even that is very expensive. You can see that, obviously, the Flames gave up probably one of their best prospects, but they also had to give up a first-round pick and a fourth-round pick, an absolute hauling. Speaking of the Canucks, and this also relates to the Maple Leafs, we thought the Leafs were going to get Nikita Zadorov. At least I thought the Leafs were going to get him right after that game where they played Calgary way back a couple months ago. And this came out on Nikita Zadorov's name being in trade rumors, saying you're starting to hear the odd thing. I wonder how happy they are with him, and I don't just mean on the ice. I'm wondering how he's meshing in that room. I'm not so sure there's a mesh right now. Now, this dropped a couple days ago to January 29th before the Elias Lindholm trade. Obviously, it doesn't have any relevance necessarily, but Nikita Zadorov, he just got there a month or two ago, and now there's rumblings of them potentially trading him. I don't know. If he is open for trade, I know the Leafs will probably be the top team to attempt to get him. But how would you even format a trade around a Nikita Zadorov, knowing what they gave up for him? Like, you wouldn't suspect the Canucks would have much leverage here.
No, none at all, actually. I think this is exciting if you're the Leafs. If you're the Leafs in this position, like Brad Treliving, you got to start poking. You got to start making phone calls. What's happening? Because there was rumors yesterday on Twitter that the Canucks want Tanev back, and he was almost included. This is a rumor, right? That he was almost included in that trade. We don't know that for sure, but he could still be on his way to Vancouver, and that would kind of fill the role that Zadorov was playing. And if he's not meshing with the group, they want the group to feel good going into the playoffs. So the rumor is they could look at trading him, and like you said, zero leverage. They got him for next to nothing. So if they want to get rid of him, they're going to get rid of him for even less probably. So if you're the Leafs, you got to start poking at that. You got to see, hey, can we get him for a 6th-round pick? Can we get him for a 7th-round pick? Maybe a low-end prospect or something, right? You got to start poking around, being like, what is it going to take to get this guy? And not only that, like, you got to pressure the Canucks. Hey, if you really want to get rid of him, we'll take him, but it's not going to be for what you want, right? So that's interesting. I would love Zadorov on the Leafs. His agent tagged the Leafs back in November. We did a video on it, which is insane, unheard of. So I would love him on the Leafs. That would really help. That even the first line pairing, I think he would look all right with Morgan Rielly, but they can shuffle him however they want throughout the lineup. He would be great for the Leafs going into the playoffs.
Yeah, and you look back at the trade, and they traded him for a 3rd and a 5th round pick. So if you're the Leafs, obviously you probably wouldn't want to give up that much. But I want to ask you the question. I want to ask everyone watching before we do wrap it up. If you're Brad Treliving right now, would you offer that exact same package, or whatever the equivalent would be, a 3rd and a 5th, to the Canucks to get Nikita Zadorov, knowing what you know now about the market, and that would just take them off of the Canucks' hands for what they gave up? Obviously, the picks will be in different spots, given the records or whatever. But would you do that? And comment down below if you would as well. Give up a 3rd and a 5th, the exact same thing the Canucks gave to the Flames for Nikita Zadorov. Would you consider that, given where they are right now?
I think you maybe like land in the middle. You call them and you're like, hey, how about 1 draft pick, maybe a 4th or 5th, right? I don't think you can give them exactly. They're going to get less than what they paid for him if this is the case. You acquired him in, I think, late November, and you want to trade him now in February. It doesn't look good, right? So I don't think they're going to get what they want for him. And if I'm Treliving, I call and I say, hey, listen, I'll give you 1 draft pick, and it could be a 4th to a 6th in between there, right? And just see what they say. It can't be. They have zero leverage in this situation. It looks terrible. Why do you want to trade him now? You just acquired him, right? So if you're the Leafs and you hear this, start poking, man. Start making phone calls.
Yeah, this is pretty exciting for the Leafs. Obviously, who knows if they'll trade him. Even just from an optics standpoint, it looks really bad. And not to mention, the Canucks are one of the best teams in the NHL, and they just bought even more in. And I wouldn't be surprised if they end up getting Chris Tanev if they want to give up one of their first or whatever it ends up being, even though they just gave up one in the one of the craziest trades in recent memory, at least at this point of the season as their trade deadline approaches. But that'll wrap it up. The Leafs have yet to do anything, but I think something's going to happen. I just don't know whether it's going to be. Chris Tanev was the biggest target, but first-round pick is probably not likely. But that'll wrap it up. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on that. Would you give up a first for Chris Tanev? Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.